This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
This table is really tilted.
Excuse me? Am I gonna get a chance to speak?
Maybe I should take that back.
Denied. Damn, son, where'd you find this?
Take a giant step for mankind.
Welcome to the Tilted Table with your hosts, Sean and Joe.
Creatures that turn around and be like, I know God personally, you will not get in without my stamp of approval. Folks, welcome to the Tilted Table, the internet's answer to a question that was never asked.
Yes.
I am your co-pilot, Sean Landon Clark.
And I'm the other co-pilot, Joey Joe, a.k.a. the Fracky Mac.
What up? Episode 7, I believe. I think this is episode 7.
It's exciting.
Yeah, and today we're going to discuss a number of different things that are all related. Things like cults, MLMs, prosperity preachers, and fake gurus that have been around since infomercials of the 80s into the internet era. I just talk about these people and what they do. My personal favorite part of this topic is they're effective. They work. Even though that I think most people know it's a dead end or it's a scam or, you know, whatever. I thought we would maybe start with cults.
Well, and I think that what really kicked off this topic was we were talking about like in, you know, growing up, 80s, 90s, and in the checkout lane at the grocery store, there was always the tabloids. And there's the black and white newspaper version, which was the
Weekly World News.
Yeah. Like, you know, werewolf boy discovered in Lake Tahoe, California.
Yes.
All these sensationalistic headlines. And I think that's what kicked us off into this rabbit trail.
Yeah, because we were really discussing why people would buy those. And if they did buy them, were they buying it because they knew it was just entertainment? Or were they buying it because they actually believed these stories? And I think we came to the conclusion that there's probably the majority of people that bought those magazines or those newspapers really believe that this was real. Even though it's, you know, the biggest lie ever told, I guess is what you want to say. I don't know. It was just outrageous things that they were saying about all kinds of topics ranging from paranormal to aliens to, well, Wolf Boys, which is one of the most famous of their covers was the Wolf Boy. So then we really kind of folded into talking about cults, and probably out of all of these things that are related, when you look at like MLMs and fake gurus, prosperity preaching, cults are probably the most powerful. I feel, at least for me, a lot of people, I think in the back of their head have to know that this is kind of a scam. Where I think people who are in cults really are 100% invested into them. It's pure brainwashing.
Oh, for sure. And we all know it doesn't start that way. It's vulnerable people at a certain moment in their life that all of a sudden they get attention and they have a group and people that are paying attention to them. Right. And then as, you know, small comments get made and be like, oh yeah, that's totally true. And then one falsehood leads to a bigger falsehood. And then all of a sudden you've abandoned your family and you're living in some trailer in deep Montana, you know, praying toward some star moon god or some weirdness.
Yeah. I know that a lot of it has to do with these people are looking for a group to join, to be a part of something. And it's, you know, obviously human nature to be a part of something. Usually that starts with family, you know, like you're part of this group of people that love you and care for you at the highest level possible, right? And if you don't have these things, cults are a place where you might end up because it becomes kind of a family. This is your family now, right?
Correct.
And so, yeah. And of course, you know, some of the more famous ones, I think the most famous cult in America has to be the Manson family, and how much was done for Charles, right? The leader of the Manson family, and his ability to get people to buy into whatever it is they believed in. I don't know if they had a specific belief system, unlike other cults that actually do have some kind of god. I don't know if Manson had one.
I think it was, you know, and I'm definitely not an expert on this one.
Neither one of us. We're definitely, what we're doing right now is off the cuff. Because we did very little research on this.
Well, this is ultimate armchair quarterbacking right here.
Oh, yeah.
But I think with Manson, it literally started with I'm using my Dr. Evil quote fingers here, the cult of personality.
Yes.
I don't know that it was a thing per se. It was just a very powerful draw of someone's personality with people, with vulnerable people.
Yes.
who then got brainwashed into doing some crazy things.
Yeah, and I mean, when you think about as big as Manson is, it's really kind of a short story. You know, they lived on this compound. They were, obviously it's the 60s, and they're doing a bunch of drugs for whatever reason. And I know there is a reason he got some of his minions to go out and kill a couple of people, some well-known people, some rich people. There was Sharon Tate, right? The wife of Roman Polanski. And I think obviously there were other people there too, and I don't know who they were. And then the La Bianca family. I think they were like rich, maybe grocery store people or something.
That's what I remembered.
Yeah, something like that, yeah. So that's really where it starts and ends, right? And then you have the Jim Jones, the People's Temple.
Jim Jones.
Right, Jim Jones, who did have some kind of they had some kind of doctrine. I don't know exactly what it was.
It was like the People's Church.
Right, People's Temple.
Or People's Temple, yeah. And that was a crazy distortion of an offshoot of Christianity. And then it became, he's the Messiah. And
that's where it always ends.
Yeah. It's just, what's amazing though is, how sane, rational people will make one choice and then one choice bleeds into madness.
Yeah. Well, there's a psychological concept of when you buy into something, and what is it? I swear to God, I hope I can think of the term before I finish this, but you buy into something, and then as you buy more into it, and you at one point you realize you're losing here. That the idea is that you're too deep into it to walk away and take the loss. So you drive yourself deeper into it. It's a gambling thing as well. It's the fallacy of sunk costs. That's what it is. The fallacy of sunk costs. I don't know if that's the actual term, but the idea that like you get into something. As you get deeper into it, even though you might know that this is a failed,
that's what it is, fallacy of sunk cost.
Yeah, you've invested too much into it to walk away from it, and you keep going in further and deeper into it, hoping, I guess, it's somewhere in the back of your head that it works out. But I know that for Jim Jones, and it's the same with a lot of these cults. The leader eventually becomes either God himself or the second coming of Jesus, and everyone buys into that. Jim Jones hauled his people to another country, Guyana, because I guess he was getting heat from, I'm assuming, from the U.S. government. And of course, the famous is the Kool-Aid. He, made his followers all drink cyanide-laced Kool-Aid, and that's where we get the famous,
drink the Kool-Aid.
Yeah, drink the Kool-Aid, right? You buy into it. But, you look at Manson, you look at Jim Jones. This is the 60s, 70s, and 80s. I'm not really sure. Jim
Jones in the 70s.
70s, yeah. So, but I think by the 1980s, I don't know if it was just more exposure to media. We're getting cable television, more channels. Maybe more mainstream outlets were starting to cover, things like cults. And so I think people became more aware, but it doesn't matter. There was always somewhere in America where somebody would start some kind of church,
right? And
it would slowly morph into a compound, and then it would slowly morph into some crazy, insane shit going on. And eventually, especially if it was white people, they eventually become Jesus themselves, right? You notice that minorities don't do this nearly as much. All cult leaders seem to be crazy white people, right? So that leads me into the Branch Davidians, David Koresh. And that was famous not just because of David Koresh and the Branch Davidians themselves, the way that the government decided to handle that. And that involved the storming of the compound. And
that was wild. I remember as a kid watching all of that kind of unfold on TV, like day one live feed from Waco, Texas. And yeah, it was just bananas watching them jump on the roof and, gunshots blazing out the other side of the wall. And
David Koresh, I think following in the same footsteps, he claimed to be Jesus. He was marrying a bunch of the girls in the compound, most of them, I think, underage, and having sex with them. And so, obviously the government is going to step in. And I know that was Janet Reno was the one that was calling the shots, and she was heavily criticized for how it was approached. I can't really comment one way or the other. These are crazy, crazy people with a lot of weaponry because the Branch Davidians had stockpiled a bunch of weapons. So, it's almost, we're going to war. It's not like you're serving a search warrant at the door for somebody, right?
Yeah. Well, and the other thing that we touched on was in the last 2 years or so, the drama documentary of David Koresh and the Branch Davidians on Netflix, which I thought was really fascinating. Like I already knew the story, and literally lived through it via the television, but to actually see how they portrayed the whole thing was like, wow, it is. It goes back to that rational people making one decision and then, you know, the opportunity of sunk cost and just like, I'm just going to ride this thing out into the sunset, and how badly that ended.
Oh, yeah. And I think that, you know, you see that the Branch Davidians were an offshoot of Christianity. So it may have been pretty easy to get people to buy into it because it probably started out as being very Christian based. And then as you just start to distort certain things, distort this over here, distort that, and change this, change that, slightly move it over here, and over time, I'm sure you can convince people who probably started out with very much a typical kind of Christian doctrine, and having David Koresh turn it into something else. And before you know it, you're buying into the Branch Davidians, your little world of Christianity that I'm sure you believe is 100% Christianity, but it's not.
Nope.
It's obviously not, but you've been slowly pulled in. Easier to pull in people when you start with that organized religion that people, you know, there's billions of Christians everywhere, right? So it's easy to start at that point and then over time manipulate, and change the meaning of things, the doctrines, and then whatever you do to end up being, I am Jesus. You know, it's the same with Warren Jeffs, you know, the Mormons in Utah, right? I mean, yeah, they start out, this is a Mormon doctrine, and, you know, over time, you start to manipulate, pull people from sort of the mainstream version of that religion, and then, you know, you create your own little world over here.
Right.
Of Christianity. Branch Davidians. Okay, yeah, sure, I'm down with that, right? And you're going to buy into it. The other one that you had brought up was Heaven's Gate.
Oh,
Marshall Applewhite.
Oh man, and HBO had a really fascinating documentary on that whole situation. And yeah, talk about I think where Marshall Applewhite differed from a lot of these other cult leaders is right out of the box. He was batshit crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, it was literally like people walked in the door and was like, "Oh, this guy is totally rational insane." And you're like, "Wait, are you insane? Like, are you seeing the same thing that I'm seeing?"
Yep. Yeah, he was. Right out the gate, Marshall Applewhite was out of his mind. His stuff was not based in any kind of Christianity or it just
no.
Yeah, it dealt with aliens and all kinds of crazy nonsense. Yeah, he's a trip. You've seen the interviews. Like, they made those interviews before they killed themselves.
Yeah.
And you listen to those people, and they're 100% just. They look like they're the happiest people to ever have lived. They can't wait.
Is it tea and dough?
Yeah, tea and dough.
Tea and dough. Oh man, and it's crazy because a lot of them were, you know, highly educated people. They weren't dumb by any stretch,
Right? Yeah.
But to fall into such absolute madness.
What did they believe? I kind of have a vague memory of what it is that they believed.
It was humanity was doomed.
Of course.
And the savior was an alien race coming from the other side of a galaxy, and their spaceship was on the other side of a comet that was passing by
That's
Earth.
That's right. What was that? Hale-Bopp.
Hale-Bopp.
That was a Hale-Bopp comet, right? I remember that. Okay.
So yeah, whenever it's a very obscure reference, but if someone says, you know, Hale-Bopp, I'm always like, wow, do you remember that story? So the just the name Hale-Bopp has entered my vernacular on a somewhat normal basis.
So they committed mass suicide, but why? Like, what was? So there's an alien hiding behind a comet that was going to pass over.
And so to gain admittance to said alien spaceship, you had to kill yourself, and they had a roll of quarters in their pocket, and that was the way you would pay your toll to get on board this spaceship.
That's batshit crazy.
I don't know. You die and still maintain like physical possession of your material goods.
What if like one of the Heaven's Gate folk dropped their roll? Maybe they were going to the bathroom before they decided to take the poison, and they get up there and it's like everybody's got their roll of quarters, and it's like, oh, what the fuck happened to my roll of quarters? What happens to that person? Where do they go?
Man, and I just remember like they were all wearing matching tracksuits because they had to have, as a space legion, they had to have their own uniform.
Okay.
They had the Nike running shoes.
Yeah, I remember that because the pictures they were all covered,
and all you saw was their feet
from head to toe,
out.
and they're just their Nike shoes sticking out.
And then Nike immediately took those shoes off the market, and those Heaven's Gate sneakers are now like some of the most highly collectible Nike shoes you can even score.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, like everybody's trying to get Jordans and these Air Force Ones, and he's like, nah, man, I want the Heaven Gate.
Yeah, it's like, man, I see you over there rocking Heaven's Gate.
the most basic shoe now worth so much money.
Yeah, oh yeah, it was definitely like a Kmart bottom rack. Probably had those little plastic handcuffs on it. Like they were a nothing shoe, but good luck trying to find a pair of these days.
Okay, well, I'm going to blow your mind right now because I do know something about Heaven's Gate. Did you ever see the website?
I have.
All right, so it was like a GeoCities. For those people that listen that don't know, that initially when the internet really was first starting up, could go to these websites that were usually sponsored by like Yahoo or whatever. One was GeoCities, the other was Tripod, and you could create your own .com, and it was real basic. If you've ever seen really old, early
Super basic,
first generation websites. And Heaven's Gate had one, as they should, because they were a legitimate religion, right?
They're a space-going legion,
right? So, anyways, that website is still up today. And you can go to it, and if you send them a message, you will get a response. There's still people that operate that website.
Seriously?
Yeah. Okay. Now I'm saying
I did not really. Okay. I'm going to do this later today.
Okay. So I'm saying this in June of 2024. I probably was like 2 years ago. Somebody either did a story about it or somebody was talking about it, and I went to it. Yeah, and it was still there. And it had to be a story. It had to be something I saw on either on YouTube or maybe on TV. That if you send them a message, they'll respond to you. So somebody is running it still. I don't know exactly what the purpose is. I don't think the people running it are part of Heaven's Gate. They're people who somehow took over.
Or it could be because there is a couple people that left Heaven's Gate. Didn't really leave the mentality or the philosophy or what they stood behind.
Yeah, it's probably that.
But they just wanted to reunite with their families.
And it's still the same shitty GeoCities style site. Like nothing, nothing's changed.
I'm literally, that's what I'm going to do tonight.
I was just thinking about that when we were talking about this. I'm like, I forgot about the website. Yeah, the website still up. And I'm assuming it's still
very
up.
distinctive. It was like the kind of the Ankh glyph in like a rainbow color that was kind of angled to, like the Star Wars entry level text to the movies as it kind of scrolled past you.
Yeah, for sure.
That's wild.
Yeah, that was a super famous one. I remember when it happened. The one thing I was pissed off about, and I think I was. So this is what 20 years ago?
More than that. This is like mid 90s. Okay,
so I remember they were in this house in San Diego, and I was dying to I wanted to live in San Diego. So at that time, my dream city. And I remember seeing this huge house in San Diego and a bunch of Nike sneakers sticking out,
bunk beds,
and my first thought was like, so some crazy bastard who clearly can't hold a job because he's batshit crazy. He got a big ass mansion in San Diego, and I can't even afford to buy a house. And I'm a functional human being with education and skills. And he's living in San Diego. I'm not. Fuck Marshall Applewhite.
Oh, that
glad
guy.
you're dead. So the other one that you had brought up that I'm not that familiar with.
It's Ayum Shinriko. And it was kind of a blend of Buddhism and Hinduism that just took off completely out of left field in a different direction. So out of Japan. And what they're famous for is sarin gassing one of the subways in Tokyo and killing a bunch of people.
I remember the sarin gas incident. I didn't know that was coming from a cult. For some reason in my memory, I was thinking it was just terrorism. But what year was that? What year was that?
Oh man, that was a death cult, and the same thing as the other ones. That gentleman, Aleph, I guess is what he was called, or the founder is Shoko Asahara.
Okay.
Let's see. That happened in 1995.
Okay.
Is when they gassed the subway. And then that guy killed himself, is what I understand.
All these cult leaders, it always ends the same way. except for Manson. Manson, he just rotted in prison.
Well, he was a CIA operative, so that's how they got him out of there.
Okay. That makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So the sarin, was that the only thing that they did?
That's all they're famous for.
Okay.
Kind of like this, as all of these other cults you know, these people gravitated towards this person with a magnetic personality who
Sure.
brainwashed them into doing certain things. And then as soon as that person was gone, then the rest of the group just kind of disbanded.
Yeah, well, you're saying that was a mix of like some sort of Buddhism and Hinduism, so maybe the same thing, starting in an actual religion, and then over time you sort of manipulate it and
Correct.
and distort it into what it is that you want, and then again, yeah, you probably yourself become. I don't know if he thought he was.
I don't know if any, well, there is
He
a
thought he was Buddha. I'm not really sure how that works.
I know there's been a couple here in the last, by a couple cults in the last couple years, but one of the things I find interesting is these people that fall into, you know, unfortunately into these groups, they don't ever think along the way like, this sounds a lot like the Heaven's Gate people, or
Right.
this sounds a lot like the behavior of Jim Jones and all of his people. It's weird that nobody ever has this epiphany on the behavior or the teaching or, you know, being brainwashed. I guess that's why they call it being brainwashed, right? You don't realize it, maybe.
Well, maybe because we really don't hear about the people that left, like the people that stay. And if you're saying like, aren't they thinking like, boy, this is a lot like Charles Manson, or this is a lot like, you know, Jim Jones? I'm sure there are people who enter these spaces that do go like, you know, this is a very Jim Jonesy, I'm out. But those people didn't stay, they didn't die, they weren't part of that. So you're not going to get those stories necessarily. I mean, I think they do interview people that I used to be part of that and I got out. I know I've seen those interviews.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please?
Leave a like on the video. I know you're enjoying this. Can you shut up?
The internet's answer to a question that was never asked. The Tilted Table with Sean and Joe.
We were talking about this with multi-level marketing, which we've concluded is pretty much operates a lot like a cult, where, you know, they pull these people in with all these promises of happiness and family and community, and you got to do this thing, which is mostly spend your own money to buy a bunch of products to attempt to sell, which are overpriced, and your life becomes this product. They call it becoming your own business person, which is an odd kind of way of presenting, like you're going to be your own boss, your own, you know, you're going to have your own business. No, you don't. You don't own Herbalife. You're basically a salesperson for Herbalife. I don't know how they can claim that you become your own business person, but it's not about selling the product. It's about getting people to join in underneath you, your downline. So if you are a person, you get 2 people to sign up and they buy a bunch of product and they start promoting it on social media or wherever they can promote it, holding parties to try to sell this stuff. But the reality is it's not the product that's going to make you money. It's getting people to join in underneath you, and you get a cut of whatever they sell. So,
well, and what was the statistic you were talking about? Like the 2 has 2 has 2.
So I might get these wrong again because I'm going off of memory and what I can remember. I do know this, that when you have this downline, so you start at 1 person and say you get 2 people underneath you, and those 2 people get 2 people, and those 4 people get 8, get 6. You know, it just keeps growing. That by the time you hit the 13th level, you've surpassed the entire population of the world. So by the 13th level, you would have to have everybody in the world working underneath you, right? So these designs don't really work. The other statistic I think that you were talking about was, and again, I might be wrong about this, but it was a statistic that was essentially like 98% of the people in MLMs at best either break even or they lose money. So you're looking at only about 2% of people in MLMs actually make any money. And I'd like to say of those 2%, it's like 30 or 40% basically would make more money if they worked a minimum wage job or just above a minimum wage job, 40 hours a week. So a very small percentage of people are making any money doing this stuff. And this is, you know, well known. It doesn't matter whether it's, you know, Herbalife or Amway or Mary Kay or Arbonne or all these different companies. They all have the same kind of numbers, right? And everyone knows this, but yet people will sign up for this under this guise that you're becoming part of this community, this great product. And the product, I guess initially, I don't know if they pitch it. I've never dealt with an MLM. If they're pitching it as like, it's such a great product that people will buy it. Because there's nothing wrong with selling a great product. I think that's great. Salesmen make great money. But if the idea is you really aren't making the money selling the product, it's more about recruiting people underneath you, and you're buying these products out of your own pocket versus like if you just get a regular sales job, I don't have to buy $1,000 of your thing and go sell it. I just go out and find clients and then, you know, get them to buy into the service or the product. And despite the fact that these things are notoriously cultish, scams, there's a line of people.
And again, it's one of those things is most people, I think, are somewhat rational, and that nobody happens to recognize these things like right out of the chute, or in just passing conversation with friends or family, be like, oh man, that's a total pyramid scheme. And it's not like, okay, mentally stop. My friend told me X. Maybe I should think about this more. It's just like, hey, Joe, do you want to buy some of my stuff? It's just so weird.
Yeah, and if you see some of the conventions that the MLMs have, that's a big part of it. And you have these people on stage saying like, you want to be successful and you have to believe in yourself, and there's going to be people out there that are going to doubt you, and they're going to tell you, you know, this or that, you can't do it, or it's a scam. And, you know, you got to cut those people out. So it's very cultish like that. Yeah, because all these people aren't telling you. The MLMs are saying this. These people aren't trying to give you good advice. They're trying to step on your dreams. That's what they're doing, right? Because they themselves don't have that sort of prosperity mindset, or that kind of, you know, what's that, the book, The Secret, the sort of, you know, manifesting.
Oh, yeah.
So that kind of mindset, right? That positive mindset.
It was funny, real quick. You just hit on The Secret. Somebody, like, when that book first came out, gave me a copy, and they were like, Joe, I think you'd really enjoy reading this.
Sure.
I'm like, I'd never heard of it before. And it was like, by page 10, I was like, WTF is this?
I do believe this goes back to like karma, this concept of karma. If you do good things come back at you. If you do bad things, you know, bad things come at you, which a lot of people say like, that sounds like a bunch of mystical bullshit. But the reality of it is karma can be kind of proven. And I'll give you an example. There's something called victim precipitation theory. This is a theory inside of victimology. It tries to explain why people become victims. Now, keep in mind, this is not victim blaming. This is just specifically the concept of you could be more likely to become a victim based on certain circumstances, right? Okay. So like if you're a drug dealer, the likelihood of you getting victimized or hurt is much higher than if you're not a drug dealer, right? So go from there, right? And there's things that are in your control, like your lifestyle choices, people you hang out with. There's things that are out of your control, like if you're a woman, you're more likely to be victimized than if you're a man, right? It's out of your control. If you're black, you're more likely to be victimized than if you're white. So I go back to this idea that the karma is the same way. If you're doing a bunch of bad things, you're probably hanging out with bad people, and you're not dealing with people who are going to be particularly good people. So yeah, if you're an asshole, you're probably hanging out with a lot of assholes who are doing asshole things. And when you act like an asshole, more than likely asshole things are going to come back to you, and vice versa if you're doing good things, right? So I think The Secret has that kind of power to it. Positive thinking is very real. If you wake up every day and you're fucking miserable and you act miserable and you're pessimistic, the glass is not half empty, it's fucking empty. Like that kind of attitude, who's going to hang out with you? Other people that think that same way. So what are the odds that you are going to just prosper left and right hanging out with that kind of crowd? So if you are positive, I'm always thinking positive, the glass is not even half full, that shit's overflowing. And you're always in that mindset, you're more than likely going to be around people that think the same way. And I would bet the majority of the time, those people are more successful on all levels, in their personal life, in their professional life, financially, spiritually, everything. So I think The Secret has that kind of merit. The problem I have with it is they sort of try to sell it as some sort of like unlocking this knowledge that no one knows about. It's like, come on, it's basically karma. It's common sense. Yeah, if you're doing all these things and it's all negative and you're negative, it's not likely you're going to wake up one morning with a happy relationship and a bunch of money and a bunch of great people around you. You're going to be miserable. Right?
Yeah.
Vice versa.
All that is fair.
But they sold that as like, you know, they unlocked some kind of secret to something, right?
And they had an interesting, I'm using my quote fingers again, an interesting video to go along with that whole presentation. It reminded me of like a Pantene Pro V commercial. You know, everything's in slow motion and whisper voices. Okay. This is awesome.
I think I've seen this. But I typically stay away from stuff like that. But I think I've seen that. I don't know what you call it, a trailer or whatever.
Yeah.
So the other one that we were kind of bouncing around are the fake gurus, very much similar to MLMs, where they get you to buy into some kind of program. Most people are familiar with this. They're big on the internet. I'm not sure at this point I'm going to call out names. I don't want to get sued, but we're so small time. I don't think it really much matters, right? The idea of claiming someone to be a fake guru, but you know these people based on things like I can make you $10,000 a week from basically doing nothing using my 3-step program. And it doesn't matter what the program is, if it's real estate, sales, or some other kind of thing. And notorious ones are people like Ty Lopez, who started the internet version of the fake guru. There's Dan Lok. And then there's probably the one that's, I think, considered to be the most legitimate would be Grant Cardone. And a lot of people argue that he's not a fake guru, that what he does is real. It's, he's legit. He's actually made money in real estate. He's just not making money off of selling you real estate programs or whatever his system is. So those are the 3 that I see the most of, or at least the ones that pop up the most when they talk about these fake gurus. And for the record, when I say fake guru, I'm not saying that what they're doing is illegal, because it's not. That's what's the beauty of it. And I'm not saying what they do is even fake. What they're actually selling you is legitimate. They just never tell you how hard it is. So, for example, there's a guy, and I don't know his name, but he's popular on YouTube. He'll come on and he'll show you a check. He's like in front of like a Bank of America, right?
Okay.
And he's like, "Oh, I'm at Bank of America. Look at this right here," and it'll be like a $50,000 check on my last real estate deal. And I can show you how to do the same thing and how I make this money. And I didn't buy any property. I didn't use any of my money. It doesn't matter if your credit is trash. You don't need any of that. And I can show you how to do this. So I'm watching this, and I know enough about real estate. What he's talking about is wholesaling. And so everyone's like, "Oh, I want to, yeah, right? He's got the proof. He's got the check, right? He's gonna show me how to do this." And what he does is his program, I don't know this to be 100% true, and I wish I knew his name. I'd say his name. But it's wholesaling is what he's talking about. It's nothing illegal about selling the information to somebody about wholesaling homes. It's true. You can make a lot of money wholesaling. But the way it's presented, that it's like, I'm not buying any real estate. I'm not putting in any of my own money. I don't need money. I'm not even using other people's money necessarily, right? This whole thing, it sounds like, wow, let
me get on that train.
And, you obviously, as a mortgage loan originator, you know that wholesaling is fucking hard and there's a lot of competition. Is he saying anything that's not true? No.
All that's true.
And he can teach you how to wholesale. Now you can go on the internet and learn it yourself. Like, it's just not like it's a hidden secret, But that's mostly what these fake gurus do. It's not that they're selling you something that isn't true. They're selling you a dream, right? They're making it seem like it's just super easy. That if you just use my 6 steps, just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, boom. You're gonna be clearing, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 deals.
You too can buy your own aircraft carrier.
Right. And so that's what I find fascinating about them, is that it's almost like a loophole to scam. Because, a scam's got that negative connotation to it. There's some illegal or it doesn't work. No, this does work. What they're selling you is legitimate. But the problem is they're also selling you something that isn't accurate, that it's easy. And that, all you have to do is just do these 6 steps and like deals will just fall out the sky. You want to wholesale a bunch of houses? Do 6 steps. Easy. And what you're going to find out is when you get out there, fucking wholesaling is not easy.
Nope. Well, and what's interesting is I think the people that gravitate towards that as consumers and think, oh, cool, 6 steps, I can do that, are the same people, and this is just my personal experience, that fall into the other traps of MLMs or multi-level marketing schemes that are like, oh my goodness, I can totally make a fortune selling hairspray.
Sure, yeah. Right?
It's generally the same person, and it's that same person just maybe with a personality tweak that ends up in a Heaven's Gate or a Jim Jones type of situation. So it boggles my mind how impressionable people are in that spectrum of where they come from and what their goals and priorities are in life.
Well, I think when you look at the people that fall for the guru, the fake money making, scams. Some of them are scams, but a lot of them are legitimate. Again, it's how they present it to make it seem so easy. I think people fall for that more often, especially probably in the last, maybe I would say 25 to 30 years because of the internet. I know when drop shipping for Amazon, like all these ads, like drop shipping, you can make all this money doing this thing called drop. You don't even have to own product, whatever. And I'm not really sure what drop shipping is. I think with the internet, it's constantly evolving and new things are happening, that it's easy to convince somebody that this is something new on the ground floor. Like, right? So when they say Amazon drop shipping, like, well, 30 years ago, there wasn't an Amazon to drop ship for.
Right.
So it's believable that like this new thing is happening.
There's
internet,
a shred of truth in there.
Right, yeah.
Enough to support the premise.
Yeah, and so it's easy to believe that. Like, well, this is something new. Like, it's same with cryptocurrency, right? Because at one point in 2008, cryptocurrency was invented. So you could easily say to somebody, hey, I'm going to show you guys how you can make millions of dollars with this new thing called crypto, right? And it's believable that, like, there is this new thing and that we can latch on to it and say, like, oh, you know, this kind of trading, that kind of trading, whatever it is. And yeah, it's believable. You know, so I can see the internet stuff definitely drawing people in. I mean, look at AI. I'm waiting for the ads to hit, like, you know how you can make $1 million with AI? And it's believable because it's like it's a brand new thing. So there has to be something that's going on right now. And if you get in on it today, I'll show you how you can use AI to make $10,000 a week or whatever the number. It doesn't really matter what it is. And I think people will over and over again fall for it because it is believable that like this is new technology and people are going to make millions of dollars off of it. So why not me? The problem is that if someone's running an ad, it's already, to me, it's flawed, right? You're not going to see an ad on YouTube or on the internet talking about this new thing that people haven't quite discovered yet about, you know, AI or whatever the thing is and how you can make $10,000 a week doing it. I think that these days with the internet, I think it's a lot easier to get people to buy in because, again, it's always evolving. There's always something new you can kind of latch onto. And there's a line of people that even if they failed at other guru stuff,
they'll jump into the next one.
They'll jump into the next one. That's amazing.
Yeah, I know. I have someone that I know very well that's probably on there like their 17th MLM. And I keep telling them, like, hey, your dream never fades, does it? And it's always that, you know, get rich quick. They need a sense of community and belonging, so they hang out with these same people, and goes to that whole, you know, you are who you associate. I've told them, just don't end up in a cult trying to catch a ride on some spaceship on the other side of a comet.
Avoid that.
And that individual always looks at me with a blank stare, like they don't even know what I'm talking about, and I just kind of leave it there and walk.
I wonder if other cult members, like other branch of Davidians, will look at Hale Bop and go like, geez, I know that we think David's Jesus, but at least we don't think that there's a fucking spaceship behind a comet. At least we're rooted in some kind of Christianity. These people, the fuck are they doing?
And on the same line is like, I can't believe those people drank the Kool-Aid. Why would you do that?
Right?
There was 900 people. You didn't watch the first 20 to see what would happen? Amazing.
So the last thing that wanted to touch on, so I gotta get on this mic, is prosperity preachers, right? You know, not your neighborhood preacher that is, you know, all about God, religion, and his community, bringing people in the church. We're talking about the mega churches that are making a lot of money, and these people who actually preach that God wants them to be rich, right? So that's part of their doctrine. I don't know what part of the Bible that they latch onto.
Yeah, that's a distortion of, you know, God wants what's best for you. That's I'll go so far as to say a bastardization.
Right. And you can think about it, they're kind of like cults, but they're kind of like cults light, right? It's like they're going to distort the Bible for personal gain, but they don't really stray too far from the actual word, but it is designed to make money.
Correct.
On a massive scale. And you're looking at people like Joel Osteen, who's probably one of the bigger ones. I think Kenneth Copeland is definitely one of the more popular ones, and he's if you don't know who Kenneth Copeland is, I wouldn't even attempt to try to describe this.
No,
just look him up on the internet.
All you have to do is like Kenneth and then space and the word meme, and you'll just get an ocean of content.
Yeah, he was the one that got confronted by a reporter's famous clip. He bought this private jet, and I guess he had said something to the effect of that he couldn't fly commercial because there's too many devils on the front of it. Yeah. Regular people are
demons in the tube.
Yeah, they're demons in the tube. So this reporter confronts him, of course, because he lives in an absolutely lavish lifestyle. His estate in Texas is fucking massive. And of course, because he's a church guy, you know, he doesn't have to pay any taxes. It's a bigger problem with prosperity preachers. And so she asked him about like this private jet. And of course, again, it's this idea that these people are just making money off of religion and they're not really the most godly people. And he snaps at her and has this not a meltdown. It's kind of
it's a tantrum.
And it's like, I didn't say that. And don't you say I said that. You know, he like some shit like that, right?
Yep.
It's a real famous clip. So anyways, Benny Hinn is also one that is really well known. I don't think he's as big in America.
No.
And this is the scarier part because there's a lot of countries, especially countries that are maybe not as industrialized or first world countries, where religion really plays like a massive role in people's lives. And he's kind of a faith healer.
Well, it's preying on people's hope, which I think that's probably on the things that we're discussing, that's probably the worst bottom rung that we're discussing.
Yeah, and if you go on and if you've never seen Benny Hinn, look him up. The crowds he has. If you think Joel Osteen and Kenneth Copeland,
stadiums.
This guy's packing 60, 70,000 people, and he's on stage in his white suit and his white hair, and he's having people come up that in wheelchairs, and he's healing them.
Healing them.
Obviously with air quotes. He's not healing anybody, but that's the thing, right? Preying on people's hopes. Man, that's bad. But I think all these guys, to me, are equally shitty people. I think out of all the types of cults, MLMs, fake gurus, the prosperity preachers are the worst. Cults, I'm going to give a slight pass just because David Koresh is crazy. He's not mentally stable. Manson is not mentally stable.
Correct.
Right? And then you could look at MLMs and fake gurus that are very mentally stable. They're basically kind of scamming people. Okay, that's bad. But prosperity preachers, to me, they're the type of people that are not only mentally stable, they're using...
It's a plan.
They're using religion. And in some cases like Benny Hinn, those hopes that like I have this incurable disease where I'm hurt and he can heal me through God, and willing to say like, I'm just going to just scam the crap out of these people and make money off of God's name. No way.
That day of reckoning is going to be brutal, man.
Yeah.
Hope you pack some water and some suntan lotion. Did you watch the show, The Righteous Gemstones?
No, never seen it, never heard of it even. So.
It's fantastic. It's one of Cookie's absolute favorite shows, and I think it shines a really funny light on that whole prosperity gospel. Deal as far as a comedy goes.
Oh, you know what? I do know this is it's a scripted show about the church. I've seen very few, again, very short clips, but I know exactly what show it is.
I think it's hilarious. Yeah, but I mean, at the end of all of those people's rainbows, there's going to be that Day of Atonement, and it probably doesn't bode well.
I mean, if you are a complete atheist, it doesn't matter that they're just going to, like all of us just die and hit darkness. I am not particularly religious, but I'm certainly not an atheist. And I believe that the shit you do here is coming back to haunt you. People can judge, various actions or sins or whatever you want to call them on various levels, whether or not robbing somebody is worse than, abusing somebody or whatever, the various things that you could, all the different sins and things that you could do are bad. And I think that, to me, the prosperity preachers, the shit they do and do it in the name of God, man, they're going to fry. And if there's a pure consequence after they pass away, I think they're going to pay a fucking huge price.
Exactly. And I guess, after this comment, this has been an interesting episode. What's the phrase is millstones. It would be better that someone tied a millstone around your neck and tossed you into the ocean than to lead people astray. I think that's 100% truth right there.
And that's a great way to end this
millstones.
End this conversation. This episode.
I have an important announcement for you, so stay tuned.
Yo, that's some next level shit, bruh. So you got me. Big deal.
The internet's answer to a question no one asked. The Tilted Table with Sean and Joe.
Well, folks, I want to thank you for tuning in to the Tilted Table and joining us for our conversation today. My name is Sean Landon Clark.
I'm Joey Joe, aka the Fracky Mac, your co-pilot on this magic carpet ride.
And tonight, instead of trying to become a millionaire in 6 easy steps, I'm going to get some vodka and soda and become drunk in 2 easy steps.
Tonight, I'm going to revisit the Heaven's Gate website. And I'm actually going to put my Safari browser on private because I don't know who's watching.
Right. All right, folks. We'll catch you later.
All right. Peace.
Bye.